So Deltarune Chapter 5 is out. It's come out. When I made my other Deltarune video, it was recorded maybe 2 months after Chapters 3 and 4 came out, but it took 6 months to make, and so by the time it actually came out, we were much closer to today than we were to the releases of Chapters 3 and 4. Now that Chapter 5 is out, I wanted to speak on my thoughts on how Chapter 5 came out, how I compare it to, hold it up to the rest of the game. So my overall thoughts on the chapter is that it's pretty good. I would probably say it's my second favorite chapter, just behind Chapter 4. I really think Chapter 4 is just a masterpiece, and I don't think Chapter 5 quite reaches those heights, simply because it decides to focus less on the story elements and more on world building and gameplay and that kind of thing. But I do think Chapter 5 is an incredible feat of just everything non-story focused, I guess. Not to say there isn't a story per se. There definitely is. It definitely touches more on the character development of Ralsei, Susie, and Chris, rather than the prophecy or the night or things like that. From start to finish, just playing, not even bothering with secret stuff or weird route stuff. It took me close to 7 or 8 hours to complete the chapter front to back, which is really, really long. So I do think there is a lot of storytelling and character development to be had in this chapter, which doesn't necessarily push the story forward, but I think given the promotional material around this chapter, I don't think that was expected. I think I was expecting more of a fun romp around the Dark World one more time, before stuff gets actually really serious. The gameplay is amazing. It's blew me away the first time I saw it. The first time I played, seeing the pedal feather and being able to play as a platformer for most of the game is kind of mind-boggling. If Chapter 3 was like the Zelda minigame, and Chapter 4 was like climbing mechanics, and Chapter 5 is platforming, I do think it's kind of setting itself up for more grand ideas. So I hope it does that, but I also hope it doesn't feel the need to implement it just for the sake of it. I think it really, really works here. In terms of gameplay, it's probably my favorite chapter. I just can't get past the platforming. It's really, really fun. The new characters are great. I just love all the flowers. I'm kind of glad they're not going to be like a continuous addition to the next chapters. I don't think we need a sprawling cast of characters to make Deltarune work. I think the ones we have work fine, and a lot of that is that all of the characters we've met so far pretty much just stay in Castletown, and I think if you were to add 7 new characters or 8 to Castletown, it would kind of create some issues. So I'm not happy that they're gone, because I did enjoy them, but I think it makes sense that they're not going to come back. My favorite is Aqua. I fell in love with her immediately as soon as I met her. She's just adorable. I love seeing fan art of her. I love seeing all the content, but I do like all the characters to some degree. I like Blue and Yellow. I think they're a great couple. I like Green, obviously. I think Orange is underrated. Orange is probably the least popular, which is unfortunate, but, and Seth, I mean, everybody loves Seth. You either love Seth or hate Seth, but I love Seth because I like Birdley for the same reason. And Flowery is, flowery, so I have mixed feelings on him, but I think in terms of just in addition to the story, I think it works really well. I have no problems with him. I just think, he's kind of annoying, but I think that's sort of by design. I'm interested to see how Asgore kind of works. I guess it sort of, he gets removed from the story at the very end when he gets kidnapped, so I suppose he's probably not going to play a huge role in Chapter 6 or 7, if I had to guess. But I think his absence is certainly going to be felt more than Undyne's. I think a lot of people were expecting him to play a bigger role in this chapter, and I really want the Deltarune characters to stand on their own, not be in the shadow of Undertale characters. I don't want the Undertale characters to play a huge role in the story. I think they certainly have roles to play, Toriel and Asgore being Chris's parents. It just makes sense, but I just don't want them to be main characters. The original characters are the strength of this game, and I don't want it to be just inflated as another Undertale sequel or something like that. The level design, the sprite work is fantastic. It is beautiful. The cliffs, I don't know the area locations, but the cliffs, like the this part. This is my favorite location of the game so far, even more than the sanctuaries, because I think just the backgrounds and the shading and the characters that show up. Flower Castle is also another great one. I just am a really big fan of having the backgrounds. I think having the sunset. I know people are like, how is there a sun in the Dark World? It's like, I don't know, but it looks really cool, so I'm not going to complain about it. The flower characters' designs, of course, they knocked them out of the park. They kind of had to. This is a huge callback to Undertale. Everyone has their fan designs of what the souls look like, and this is more or less their attempt to kind of portray that in game. They're obviously not humans. It's kind of a whole theme about them, how they think they're humans, but they're obviously not. But I think the designs are fantastic. I just think this is probably the most visually impressive chapter. The music, of course, is amazing. It's a Toby Fox chapter, and I don't know what we were expecting. I don't think it's as good as chapter 4, and I don't even know if it's as good as chapter 3. I think chapter 3 and 4, that whole soundtrack is just amazing. Because a lot of them are explicit callbacks as opposed to original songs, it does kind of weaken the impact a little bit. Not to say Garden of Hopes and Dreams or Rakuichi Buster isn't good, but it's like you listen to that and you're like, oh, these are so good because the originals are good. But then you get to Quiet Glade, which I think is really underrated, or Sunset of Seven Suns, Running Sky, Petal Dance. These songs are fantastic. I think they're exactly what I want out of Deltarune, and I've always been a fan of the area themes more in Deltarune than the battle themes, and I think they are some of the best he's ever made. Running Sky might be top 5 on the soundtrack, like the total soundtrack. It's easily my favorite song. Well, not easily. I think Sunset of Seven Suns is really, really good, but Running Sky is one of the best Deltarune songs I've heard so far. The Mega Man sound font is amazing. The way it's used in the game is amazing. It is a very unserious chapter in a lot of ways, but I think this music is epic in a way that's not overly serious. I just love the flower motif. I love how it's used across the soundtrack with the fights, which are, I feel like, less important in this chapter, simply because while it is a part of the platforming sections, there are certain fights that you can do while platforming. A lot of the time it's also I don't even know what the word, I guess diegetic fighting, like you're fighting the enemies using the platforming mechanics, and so obviously that's, I enjoy that, but it's definitely taking a lot less emphasis away from that, which I think, in order to compensate, the fights seem more difficult. They're not insanely difficult, but I think specifically the two fights, like the two major fights in the normal route that are actually hard, in my opinion, are the Aqua fight at the very beginning. I died a couple times, and the Flower Man fight at the end, I died a couple times as well. And in the past, I've really only died maybe once to the main bosses. I think this is probably the most difficult in terms of just the most difficult selection of fights in the game so far. The bullet patterns are generally more difficult in this chapter, so I don't mind that, but it's definitely, something to keep in mind. Chris, they don't do a whole lot, which makes sense because they're usually quiet. That's kind of their whole thing, but they are the ones who opened the Dark Fountain, which a lot of people weren't expecting. I think I was expecting to some extent that it was going to be Asgore or maybe Noelle or Susie, but Chris being the one to open the Dark Fountain, whether it be out of jealousy or whether it be part of the grander plan, I don't know, but it's definitely something I wasn't expecting. They are obviously very important because their father is kind of the main driving force of the story. We still don't learn a whole lot about what happened with Asgore and what happened in December, so I think there definitely is some story moments, but I think we definitely learn a little bit more about them, but certainly not as much as we did in chapter 4. As for Ralsei, he does not like Flowery at all. He hates them. He doesn't really respect the flower characters, which for the most part doesn't come up until he kind of bullies Orange. She's like, oh, like trying to be tough, and Ralsei's like, oh, you're just, you're a little cute little mouse thing, and that's, it's definitely try to play for comic effect, but you can tell it's supposed to be uncomfortable. Susie definitely seems uncomfortable. She's like, hey man, come on, cut her a break. I think Ralsei is coming into his own character. He's showing his own feelings, and part of that is still the disrespect of the Darkners. I think he still doesn't view them as equivalent. So I think that's interesting to see him to continue to change his character. He is vastly different from how he was in chapter 1, although they do make a major chapter 1 callback by giving him his hat back. It's a good story arc. I'm excited to see how he kind of concludes it, because in my opinion, the grand tragedy of the prophecy is, or like the way they're going to subvert it, I guess, is going to be sealing the Castletown fountain, and it's going to be sacrificing Ralsei. Maybe not like literally, but in a sense that we won't see him again. And I do think that's going to be tragic, obviously, but I think it's going to be almost like, while he was already accepting of that in the beginning, it will be accepting of a different reason. Like he finally found a purpose that wasn't just the prophecy, and in providing, friendships to Susie and Chris. And I do think he probably won't survive the game, so to speak. So I do think he's a very important character to develop. Another thing I just want to touch on briefly was the Ralsei theory. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's kind of the theory that Ralsei is going to transition to a girl at the end of the game. I have mixed feelings on that. Obviously, I'm not, as a cisgender man, I probably don't have a horse in this race, but I do think I lean towards him just staying Ralsei. There's certainly a lot of feminine parts of his character that I think people are focusing on, but I do think there is a world where he just is a guy who is feminine, and I think that's okay. But I think it's too early to say. I don't think either is gonna be concrete 100% gonna happen. So there is certainly room for it to work, and I think if anybody can do it, it would be Toby. And so if that's I don't want to sit here and make a prediction and look like a fool, so I'm not gonna, but I am aware that is a thing, and I am certainly interested to see how other people take on it. Susie kind of doesn't do a lot in this chapter. I think part of that was chapter 4 was sort of her moment to shine, but I think she still is learning to change. One of the big things is like she starts wearing ribbons, she starts understanding how the game works, and I do think part of that is she has bought into this idea of her role in the prophecy. She also seems to have more stake in saving the light world now with Noelle, so I think that's part of it, but I don't think she does a whole lot outside of the festivals. We finally got, I can't even say finally, because I genuinely believe that Suzelle was already, like, it was not really in question to me whether it would be a thing. It was already a thing since like chapter 2, but this is as concrete of a confirmation we're gonna get. I mean, come on, we all watched this. We all watched the scene. It's I was cheesing the whole time. I thought it was great. I thought it was so cutely written. I think it's just a great thing. I really like this relationship. I really hope it works out. I think it will work out. I think there's obviously going to be road bumps, just with Rudy falling down at the festival, with Carol being Carol. December's still missing, and she may end up back into the story, which would obviously throw a wrinkle into it if, I think she's the knight. If I think she's the knight, and if she is the knight, then obviously that's going to create a problem between Susie and Noelle. But I do think right now things are looking good, and I just hope it works out. I don't want to make this a huge thing, but I do think some people have been really weird about this relationship. I think some people are still in denial that it's a part of the game. Like, I understand if you really like these characters and you want them to be in a romantic pairing, like Chris and Susie is pretty much, or Chris and Susie or Chris and Noelle. I understand that, but I think if you are assuming that if Susie and Noelle get together, it's bad writing, I think you're either misunderstanding the game or you're being purposely obtuse, and I just can't get behind that. It really frustrates me. It really shouldn't, but it really does frustrate me to the point where I have to kind of block it out of my mind. It's such a non-important part of the game of like the shipping wars, because there is no wars. It just is a relationship in the game, but some people are treating it as if it's going to be a battle to the end. And so I think some people are going to try and fight for it to the end, but I just don't care. It's here, it's going to work out, and you can't change me because it's my video and I get to pick the discussion topics. One last thing I want to talk about was some theories I had. Truthfully, I don't like to theorize, not because I don't like being right or wrong, but I prefer more an analysis of what's happened as opposed to trying to predict what's going to happen. One of that is what I think the final prophecy is, which I think is going to be the sealing of the Dark Fountain in Castletown. I think it just makes too much sense in my head. So Susie has become sort of emotionally attached to the idea of the Dark World, and I think it almost makes too much sense that her whole character arc will be concluded with the closing of the Dark World as sort of a tragedy for her, but I do think she will have become a better person. So I think that kind of concludes both of those characters. As for Chris, I don't really know. It's still interesting. It's still a weird kind of theory of why Chris is doing what they're doing. My friend brought up a theory that intrigued me, which was that Carol somehow has Chris's soul. And I do think there's some contextual evidence for that, specifically like the heart memorabilia in Carol's house, which would also explain why Chris is doing this. I think Chris has some unresolved guilt towards December, and if December is the night, which I do think she is, it would make sense that Chris feels guilty towards their disappearance, and they feel like they have to go through with whatever plan this is for the sake of Des and to a lesser extent Carol. Noelle has been showing symptoms of depression. I think that has been a topic that's been explored explicitly in the Weird route, but it's been alluded to a couple times, or at least it is alluded to in this chapter. And I think Susie will give her a reason to kind of want to stay, give her the ability to break free of her expectations, the role she's been given by her mother, by hometown, by like everyone around her. And I think that is how it will work out. Whereas Noelle will be something that ties Susie down into the light world, gives her a reason that she'll be able to mourn the absence of the dark world, but not, be lost without it, if that makes any sense. Those are all of my thoughts. I hope this video is not too long. I'll probably cut down a lot of it, but I really just wanted an unscripted video where I can just kind of ramble on stuff I've been thinking about over the last 2 weeks or so. By the time you see this, it'll probably be a couple more weeks after that. But something I just wanted to mull over my thoughts of this chapter. I have yet to play it a second time. I hope I will be able to go back and do it again and maybe change my thoughts, but I really wanted this to be an explicit first thoughts video with a lot of content consumed from art and fan theories and stuff like that. So thank you for watching, and yeah, I guess I'll see you soon, hopefully. Maybe not, probably not, but peace. Neofolclor caribeño, venezolano, malandro.